Hello everyone, welcome to Conversations with Sakina. Today we are going to look into a very cold case concerning 3 missing lighthouse men. This took place in the 1900s, as I said, very cold case, and is still unsolved. So I'm going to look into using the Lenormand cards, the Grand Tableau method of distance, and see if we can determine what might have happened. And there's going to be a little bit of a supernatural bent to this, simply because no one knows exactly what happened. These men disappeared while on their 2-week duty at the Flannan Isles in Scotland, and they figured that they disappeared somewhere around December 15th, 1900. That's when a storm had come upon them and the lighthouse had gone dark. No one had lit the fire, so investigation needed to be done. Now, there are a number of different stories about this particular disappearance. The one that I listened to was from Scary Mysteries YouTube channel, and it was titled Top 5 Creepy and Terrifying Unsolved Disappearances. I'll put a link to that in the description box below if you would like to hear more about this case. But we're going to start out with just a very simple portion of the story. The men came with their superintendent to the lighthouse for their 2-week term. They would be replaced after 2 weeks to go to a different lighthouse. It's just a lighthouse rotation. And this lighthouse had been built a year before, so it was very strong, not old and decrepit. And there were some rules that went with being a lighthouse keeper. Ruling being 2 people could go outside to attend to anything that needed attending to. 1 person was always required to stay inside to keep watch. This lighthouse also had no communication on it, so apparently it was observed 24/7 through a telescope. So if the men got into any trouble, they could signal, and whoever was manning the telescope would get in touch with whoever they needed to get help out to the men at the lighthouse. Now, 2 different stories are given here for the discovery of them missing. One is that the ship that was meant to bring their relief got hung up due to weather, so it showed up late. And when it did arrive, they didn't find anyone at the lighthouse. The fire had not been lit, and whoever went up to the door, and there was a name given, but the man who went up to the door, Joseph Moore, went up to the lighthouse and unlocked the door, but he didn't find anybody. They did see that there was no fire in the grate, which would be the lighthouse, I'm assuming the lighthouse light, and that it hadn't been lit for several days. Now, my question here is, why did the telescope not pick this up? Why did it not notice that the lighthouse was not lit? The only thing that I can think is it happened to be extremely foggy, because they did mention that visibility could be a problem sometimes due to fog and the thickness of weather. So maybe that's the explanation for that. But at any rate, no fire in the grate for several days, and the clocks had stopped working, and apparently there was a table set with a full meal on it that had never been touched. Storm gear, 2 sets of storm gear were gone, 1 still remained. Little bits and pieces of things. The other story was that a ship did go to check on them and pretty much found the same thing. Now, the oddball thing here was, some people say that there was a logbook, and within the logbook there were entries talking about one person being a little irritable, and all of them crying due to the storm that was upon them, and all of them praying and so forth. But the odd thing is, when being trained, these logbooks were meant for details of the lighthouse and not personal information. So nobody has actually found a logbook, according to some stories. And according to some stories, the logs were, like I said, and the superintendent knew these men personally and said this was not their style. They would have never cried over a storm. They would have never prayed. They were not God-fearing men, that kind of thing. So some of that doesn't add up. One of the sites made mention of the fact that the logbook was not actually ever found. So that's anybody's guess. But there's the story. So it's an unsolved mystery. It's an island pretty much out in the middle of nowhere. And these three men were on this island by themselves, manning the lighthouse. Some speculation says they were taken over by a rogue wave while they were trying to fix, it was the west landing railings that got bent out of shape, and an iron railway that was actually ripped up out of the concrete. That they had been trying to fix that and got taken over by a rogue wave. Well, other people speculate that they were taken through a portal of some sort and were taken into another dimension. So we're going to take a look with these Lenormand cards. And this is purely simple Lenormand. It is my design, one I use personally but do not sell. And we're going to charge these cards here. So this card is for all three lighthouse men. I could choose other cards to indicate all three individually, but it is my gut that says they did not off one another. The rider is going to indicate visitors from outer space, so UFO. The ship will be either a ghost ship or the portal that people are talking about. The snake is going to be a human that killed all three men. And the fish, or this could be one of them, okay? But a human that killed all three men. The fish is going to be a sea monster. And the woman is going to be Mother Nature to indicate the rogue wave or just the storm. So I am going to mix all these up, put them into the deck, and mix the deck up really, really well. And then I'll lay out the cards, but I will be quiet while I'm doing that so I can speed up that part of the video for you so you don't have to sit and watch how long it can take to load up these cards. Now the question I'm going to be asking here is what happened to the three lighthouse keepers who went missing? All right, hold on please. Okay, so now that we're all laid out here, so we're going to look at the first three cards here. The anchor card is about stability. It is about security. And we have the card that we charged for Mother Nature. So I'm going to say that the lighthouse that they were in, because it was only a year old, was very secure and very stable, no matter what Mother Nature would throw at them. But like anything, there were obstacles or challenges still, okay, that the men had to deal with. So I'm not seeing at this point that Mother Nature is what actually took them out. The rogue wave that it was talked about, even though they were going through quite the storm, and the last anyone knew, they were gone by approximately December 15th, 1900. So then if we look at the four corner cards here, Oh wait, before we look at the four corner cards, here's our three light keepers. This here is their near cards with the method of distance, or very near cards, sorry. The near cards are these. Far cards would be right here, and the very far right here. Now again, one of the things I look for is the mice, because when you're looking for a missing object, if the mice fall close to whatever card you've deemed as the thing you need to find, and in this case, this is the lighthouse keepers, if it's far from them, they are not going to be found. And obviously, since 1900 was a long time ago and it's 2024 right now, I'd say that was a safe bet, that's accurate. Also, they're showing the key, the solution card, whoops, right beneath the mice. So I guess we're going to say that they didn't make it. And with a coffin card right next to the solution card as well, I'm going to say they probably didn't make it. But again, it's not showing that Mother Nature was the cause. Now we have the other cards that we charged. So we have the UFO card, or the visitors, within their near. We have the sea monster or sea creature in their very near. We have the portal or the ghost ship in their far. So I'm going to say that this one's out. The ghost ship and the portal are out. The UFO visitors and the ship or the sea creature and a third party are in their near area. So that's what we have to work with. So let's see if we can narrow it down a little bit and see where this might lead. So if we look at the four corner cards, okay, so we've got the anchor. It's the security and the stability of the lighthouse. And this was work that these men were accustomed to doing. Nothing new. This is what they were recognized for. Their job was to make sure that the lighthouse stayed secure and stable. And they loved their job. They were very passionate about being lighthouse keepers. They very much enjoyed the adventure and the excitement of the crazy times, and perhaps the solitude of the times when, the storms were fine, making sure that they saved the lives of those. And, even to the point of alerting perhaps ships to sea monsters, large sea creatures, maybe whales, or it doesn't have to be a supernatural creature, but there were very large octopi and there were whales, I'm sure. I'm not sure where any of these, if they're anywhere near Scotland, but this is what I'm reading from the cards here. And then when we look at the four center cards here, we see the card that we deemed the visitors, okay, or UFO. And we see the solution card also. We see the child. So this could perhaps be innocence of the men concerning possible UFO. And here we have the fox, which is a wrongdoing, or it can also be where it was something they were paying attention to, paying close attention to. So perhaps in this case, they saw a UFO, or perhaps they saw aliens. Maybe the aliens came to visit in the lighthouse, or something made them pay attention. Something made them feel as though they were being watched, or just being creeped out like a child would be. They had some fears, and This key is the answer to this whole scenario here. Now, a key can also be an open door that, a visitor showed up, they opened the door like a child would, and something bad happened to them. Something wrong happened to them. Now, did the visitor do that? We don't know. Not yet. However, when we look at the solution card on either side, we have the visitor and we have the coffin. So it is possible that the UFO, the aliens, put an end to their lighthouse keeping. Did they kill them? Maybe. We don't know yet. Also, with the method of distance, having the tree card, which is kind of the well-being, having it in close proximity isn't good. It would be preferable to have it somewhere far away, and that would let you know that they were in good shape. They were still healthy. Not seeing that. It is in the near column here. So if we look at the men, they were in contract for their 2-week stint at the Flannan Isle Lighthouse. And I feel as though they weren't told the whole truth about this lighthouse. I feel like there was some third-party deceit. I don't feel as though a third party hurt them. I just feel like there was some third-party deceit here, because here is the book, which is hidden knowledge, something that they were not told. Something about the clouds, something in the clouds. And again, we have visitors hiding in the clouds. Okay. So, hidden factor here is with the sea monster card. And it looks like whatever this hidden knowledge is in the higher ups, those in the institution, whoever sets the people or the men up for what lighthouses that they go to, and whoever works to have the lighthouses built, that kind of thing. They had a secret, and they didn't share that secret. They were this third party, these people were very secretive about things, and maybe they didn't know everything, but they did kind of know, I think, according to the cards. And they truly did not, I don't think they even knew for sure what the situation was. And maybe there was something that happened while this lighthouse was being built the year prior. Maybe something that got swept under the rug, so to speak. And the higher ups knew about this hidden information, and this is what they kept from the men who committed themselves to the job. And perhaps, these guys were, thinking that whatever happened was actually some kind of a sea creature incident. They just really couldn't make up their minds which it might be, where it might be this, visitors, UFOs, or sea creatures, sea monsters even. And these men, they were committed to their job. They were very loyal to their job, loyal to one another, very good friends. And no matter what the weather, no matter what was going on, they were committed to each other and to the job. So they weren't going to just up and leave. So let's look at the fate line here. So we have the whip, we have the stork, we have the letter, and we have the cross. The whip is a struggle, or some kind of drama, some kind of discord, something that repeats. And I think there may have been, in the higher ranks, there may have been repeating stories about something in the clouds, visitors perhaps, that stayed hidden, and the third party that sent these guys out to do the light keeping job did not share that information. But I feel like it was maybe repeated sightings that went on. And the fate line here seems to show that the change of their rotation, I'm going to say the rotation of these men, just was repetitive. Whatever orders they received, that's where they went. And it was a very repetitive cycle. And it was a hardship. It was a sacrifice. They sacrificed themselves for the good of the ships and the men on the ships to make sure that they stayed safe. This was the whole point of everything for these men. That's what they gave their lives for, and I'm saying their living lives. This is what they did. So if we look at their line of sight, we have the higher ups here. They were high up in the lighthouse, unaware of the situation here, the possibility of visitors, UFOs, unaware of that. And they went on their job as they would normally do, the rotation change. They went on that job just like children, following orders, and didn't have any idea that there was something secretive, something wrong with this particular lighthouse, this job. They thought it was just safe, and that they would be housed there for their 2-week stint, and they would be protected from the elements. They would be able to socialize and while they were working, and it was what they thought was a good opportunity. Small opportunity. Not sure why it's considered a small opportunity, but the clover is something small. But they did feel lucky to have the job. And if we look at the column, we see Mother Nature and we see the Friends card, the dog. These men they knew what they were in for. They knew that Mother Nature could really throw something at them, but they had one another's backs. I think they had probably worked together before and were friends and loyal to each other. So the path they took was together. It was their decision to do this together. So James Ducat was 43, Thomas Marshall was 28, and Donald MacArthur was 40. And my guess, according to the cards, is that these men were abducted by aliens. This is in the near cards, and so the clouds are in the very near, so I do believe that the aliens hid themselves in the clouds, in the dark clouds, and when the storm struck, they came down and took the men. They might have even come in looking like humans, and the men opened the door for them like a child, and it ended up being the wrong decision. They let them in. The other point here is that what was found when Joseph Moore went and opened the door of the lighthouse, what was found was the clocks weren't working, which UFOs, they claim, shut off all electronics. Now, back in 1900, did they have electric clocks? They didn't have any communication on this island, so I'm not necessarily thinking it was something stopped the clocks. Whatever, and again, UFOs are supposed to be able to stop clocks and stop the ignition in cars or the engine in cars and, mess with radio stations and things like that. So, however, it's possible that the clocks stopped working in this lighthouse. Plus, the meal that they had prepared wasn't touched. Now, that could mean that there was an emergency, an obstacle of some sort. But this card is, touching the obstacle and touching the wrong sly card, the visitors. And it's under the bouquet card, which is a surprise. It's supposed to be a nice surprise, but it's a surprise. Maybe they thought that they were being visited that it was a surprise inspection, or maybe they thought that their superintendent, Robert Muirhead, had come to check on them. So, they wouldn't think anything about opening the door if someone knocked. But that's not it's not what it was. Now, are they or did they die from this encounter? Now, the coffin is far. So that remains to be unknown. Were they taken into the sky? Well, we have the sun card right here. And so I'm going to say they were probably taken up in the UFO, would be my guess. And that's where they lived, at least for a while, until perhaps they passed away. Now, again, remember, this is all speculation. All I can do is give you what I have or what I see in the cards, how I interpret them. So if you are a Lenormand reader and you see something totally different or something that I've missed, please don't hesitate to leave that in the comments. I'm not a seasoned reader for Lenormand, so any little tidbits are very helpful in the learning process. So that's what I have for this reading of the 3 missing lighthouse keepers. And for this fate line, one last thing here is that, again, this was something that they did repetitively, these men. This was their career. It's what they were known for, what they were recognized for. And they moved from one lighthouse to another over and over again with whatever orders they were given. And they knew that they could die at any time. Obviously they would have one another's backs, but, when it comes to Mother Nature, when it comes to the storms of the sea, you just never know. So they were fully aware of the burden on their back, the possible sacrifice that they would be making for others, the ships, to make sure that they stayed safe. But certainly they probably never considered visitors from outer space. Okay, so that's it for this missing persons case, this cold case. If you have any insight, please share. Until next time, take care.